Welcome to Mark My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Mark My Words. This episode is sponsored by GrowX Labs. Let's be real, leading a business is lonely. When the big decisions land on your desk, who do you actually talk to? That's where GrowX Labs comes in. Their executive decision support gives founders and execs direct access to a strategic sounding board. Someone who's been in the trenches and knows how to cut through the noise. Whether it's team tension, high-stakes moves, or just needing to talk it out, GrowX helps you move forward with clarity and confidence. Head to growxlabs.com/mark. That's GRWX labs.com/mark and book your discovery call. Alyssa Nolte, my guest today on Mark My Words, is not shy and is very passionate about her love of entrepreneurship. She is the very definition of a serial entrepreneur, and one of the sentences in the pitch to be on this show is that she jokes with her friends and family that her goal is to push people into starting their own businesses. She's been successful at pushing at least 4 people into starting their own business, and she's been helping them through it every step of the way. And I love that because I know personally I've been doing podcasting for quite a few years now, and any chance that I get to spread the love and to, just impart some of the wisdom that I have and the things I've learned and tools I'm using, I love doing that. I think that's what it's all about. And I love Alyssa's story. I can't wait to hear it in her own words. And she is an entrepreneur in all kinds of ways. She has 2 podcasts, one called the Growth Signal Podcast, the other, Taking Back Monday Podcast. She is also the owner of Ology, the founder of Form Dash, founder of Lift 360, and she is here on Mark My Words. How you doing today, Alyssa?
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here, and it's great to not only talk entrepreneurship, but to also talk to somebody who has multiple podcasts and is really passionate about helping people to find themselves as an entrepreneur or even a podcaster. I know, as I stated, that's something that I am just passionate about in general because I know how hard it is. Like when you find your passion, it's like boom, you're off and going, but it can be hard to actually find like that thing you're passionate about and to have at least 4 people to your credit to helping to become entrepreneur is pretty awesome, and that's certainly 4 more than I can say I have. So that's why you are here, so that you can not only teach the audience, but maybe you can teach me a few things too. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. And it's one of those things where I never really intended to be an entrepreneur. Like if you would have asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? This is never something that I would have had in the back of my mind, right? I went to school, got a degree in psychology and a degree in marketing. And was like fully gonna do the corporate path. Like when you were asking me in college, my plan was I was gonna go get a job for one of the big corporations for a logo that you have heard of. And I was gonna work my way up the ladder. I was gonna work 70 hours a week. I was gonna, bust whatever I needed to bust in order to be successful. And that was my plan. That was fully what I was expecting to do. And then when it came time to graduate, and I had an offer from one of those companies in hand, and then I had a second offer from a nonprofit that needed a regional executive director. And so I have these two offers with salaries and benefits and paid time off and all of those things that you would expect to want upon graduation. I not only had one of them, I had two of them, right? I was double ahead of all of my classmates. And then I had this third offer for a startup that was in the campus incubator by two college professors. There was no money. They were pre-revenue. They had never sold a single thing in their entire business career because in their minds, they weren't really a business. They were just kind of like trying it out. And I was so excited about their product and what they were doing. So I did, the natural, logical thing and turned down two full-time jobs right out of college and took on a 100% commission only sales role with this startup. I would only make money if the company made money. I would only eat what I killed. And in hindsight, I cannot believe that I did that. But in the moment, it seemed so exciting. And looking back, it really shaped the person that I've become.
I personally, listening to your story, I can't believe you did it either because I personally, when I look back 20 years ago, there is no way that I would have done any of what you did. Like, it takes a lot of courage to come out of college. I mean, you have, really solid majors. So it would seem natural and obvious to just go out there and find a job, not turn the jobs down because I know just how hard it was to find a job in general coming out of school. Granted, I picked a major that's in a field that's not exactly like the easiest to navigate, but I was just absolutely thrilled to have a job and to be at least putting myself on what I thought was a route to, climbing the corporate ladder and gaining a lot of that fulfillment, quote unquote. If I can get my fingers in there. Not that you need to see air quotes, but uh, yeah, it's that's really how a lot of us are kind of like brought into the world is to think about, okay, I need to go to school, I gotta get a degree or some kind of skill, and then I'm gonna go on and I'm going to get a real job, I'm gonna climb the ladder, I'm going to evolve in that way, white picket fence, and you know that's all she wrote. But you kind of like stepped on the brakes and did something that is actually probably a little more unconventional than a lot of other entrepreneurs and just people in general, which I really admire. How like how do you build yourself up? Because you wound up, if I'm remembering your story, you took like that first job was unpaid, correct?
Yeah, it was commission only. So if I sold a deal, I would get a percentage of that deal. But if I didn't sell anything, I got absolutely nothing. No benefits, no wages. There was not a single guarantee in that role, in that relationship. And because the business didn't have money to like invest, it's not like they had a swath of clients who had filled their coffers before and they were bringing me on to help them scale or help them grow. They had to start from square one. There was no clients, there was no history. And because the two founders were college professors, they didn't have a network of previous business relationships to rely on. So I was a fresh college student. They were college professors. We really had to start at square zero, not even square one. And I think it's one of the things that part of what happened was I was completely naive, right? Like I didn't know what I didn't know. And so if you would ask me to do that same thing again with the knowledge of how hard it would be, I'm not sure I would have made the same decision. So there, I had the benefit of I'd never worked for a business before. I'd never worked in a corporation. I hadn't been beaten down with that cynicism yet. It was almost like I had this unreasonable belief in myself and the product and what we were doing. And I didn't know it was unreasonable at the time, but I think any sane human being would look at that and say, this seems really risky. This seems really dumb. This seems really like a waste. Why are you turning down what everybody's looking for, which is the full-time job for what is probably a pipe dream?
And it's funny that you put it that way because I know that when I'm navigating through the fields of entrepreneurship, I get a little bit of anxiety just taking on something a little bit different or unconventional. And I have a full time regular job. The risk is a lot different for me than somebody in your situation. And even I get a little bit like, I don't know about doing this or that. It's gotta really feel right to me in my gut. And I try to listen to that intuition as much as I can. And it sounds like your intuition was good. And I'm not gonna sit here and say, well, you did it the right way, but you did, I think, a pretty, in my, just my opinion, I think you did it a pretty good way if you're going to do something like that because you not only were coming into it like, okay, this is a learning experience, but on the other hand, it was also a learning experience for them. And there's a lot to be gained when two entities come together and you're both taking on something brand new like that. Because I know that I have done the same kind of thing with this show and collaborating on something that, I didn't know too much about and they didn't know too much about, but you come in and you learn together and you grow. And hey, for all the risks that you took with that, I think that that was like not a bad way to go about it.
And you talked at the top of the show about how, I'm pushing people into entrepreneurship. That really goes back to the original conversation that was the deciding factor of me deciding to turn down quote unquote real jobs for this startup opportunity. Because I came across this company and I called my dad as a 22-year-old girl in college is going to do. And he had that traditional career. Like he was a high-level executive at HP. He had worked his way up the ladder. He had, traveled the world, President's Club, all of those successful things that you think of. So I had planned on, kind of modeling my life. That was my expectation. I was going to model that kind of a life. And I called and I said, "Hey, I have this opportunity," and I kind of explained it to him and I was talking about it and I think I was really looking for him to tell me to take the real job. Truly. I was looking for him to be the dad of like, you need to be responsible, you need to make the good choices. You went to college and now you're going to take a not real job. And he blew me away when he said, "I think you should try the startup thing." Because he looked at me and he said, "You can do this. You can go build a career, you can start making good money, you can climb the ladder, you can have all these benefits, and you're always going to have that little question mark in the back of your mind of what if?" And he's like, "Right now, you don't know the difference. You don't know what it's like to have money. You eat ramen every day. Like, what is the worst thing that happens? Either you get in on the ground floor in an incredible opportunity and you get to build something that you believe in and your everyday matters and it turns into something incredible, or it absolutely fails. You learn a ton of things and you walk into the next interview with more experience, more interesting stories, more exciting things for the company who's ultimately going to hire you. But either way, you win in this opportunity and in this relationship. And so getting that almost permission from him to go try this really changed the way I went about it. And so that's really the lens that I've taken with my friends and my family and the people that I come across when they have something that they're like, I'm thinking about doing this. That's why I'm always pushing them into it because sometimes people just need permission to go do the thing that they want to try.
I love that. And kudos to your dad for like just kind of giving you the confidence to go ahead and take the plunge. Because let me tell you, my dad was like the complete opposite. He's like, why don't you just get a business degree? Why are you getting a degree in TV film production and just it was like total opposite. We're not even talking
Yeah.
about starting a business. Who knows what he would have said about me starting a business and a podcast? But I know that that kind of parental encouragement that goes a long way,
Yeah.
and I love the fact that you haven't even really had a formal job outside of college that is amazing. And I think that there's some truth to the fact that, like, you don't already know what it's like. And if you had an idea and you were off to a good start, at least you had something going on. Like, why not just play it out and see what happens? And I would definitely say you are more than playing it out at this point
Yeah.
with two podcasts and uh, a number of businesses I can't even count.
Yeah. I am definitely not going to sit here and pretend like it has been easy, right? So like if we go back to that original several, first couple of years of that business, I always tell people I made $1,200 my first year as a commission only seller, not $1,200 a week or a month or a quarter for the full calendar year. And then the second year, I 10x'd it and I made $10,000. And then the third year, I doubled it and now I'm at 23,000. It took me 4 years of building this business to make enough money that per year that I would have made if I would have just taken that one corporate job in the first place. And so, like, we're not going to sit here and pretend like everything was rosy and pretty and worked out perfectly. It's great now and we're doing so well, but it did take so many years for me to find any level of success. And I always tell people when they come to me and they talk about this thing that they love or that they're passionate or that they want to build a business around this thing that they love, I actually usually tell them no, not to do that because society tells us like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm always like, do not do that because the minute you monetize something you love, it is no longer something you will love anymore. Everything I have ever tried to monetize that I love, I have ended up resenting, no longer enjoying, and I end up putting it down. I always tell people, can you be obsessed with this thing? Can you can you think about it day and night? Do you want to understand every angle and nook and cranny and crevice of this problem that you're solving? Are you willing to stand up in a crowded room and rave about it like the lunatic across the street who's trying to get you to pay attention to the end of the world? Are you ready to do that? And if you're not ready, then it's maybe time to pause and find something you can be obsessed with versus something you can be passionate about.
That is a really interesting take because I absolutely love what I'm doing and I have no plan of stopping at all. However, I do see your perspective because sometimes the idea of doing something that you starting a business based on something that
Yeah.
you love. Like I know, for example, you see these records behind me. I am a humongous music collector and music person. I have kicked around doing something with that. And I know for me, there is always a little bit of a fear, even though I feel like it would be a great avenue for me to take. there's a little bit of a fear that if I started doing something based on that, that I might not love it as much as I do. And I hold that to be like really sacred because
Yeah.
music is something that is very therapeutic for me and it helps me to get through life sometimes. So as much as I would love and still kind of kicking around a little bit, I do appreciate your logic that it can be a little bit, I hate to say dangerous, that's kind of
Yeah.
a strong word, but uh, it can be a little bit risky to say, I love this so much that I want to do X, Y, and Z with it. Because there is some truth to it. You may
Yeah.
not like it as much later. Can you live with that?
Yeah. And I think too, like you can love something you're obsessed with, right? Don't get me wrong. Like I can love it. The question is will it still feel special and unique and joyful for me if it's the only thing I think about 24/7? If it's no different than breathing air, right? And I think that if you're not willing to risk the enjoyment of it and not willing to risk thinking about it as something you enjoy doing, then I would be very hesitant to turn it into something that you monetize. And I think we as Americans in particular are very quick to try to monetize every function of our lives. And I am the worst about this, right? So like I got a TikTok account and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna post product reviews so then I can make money on the creator fund and then da 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 da. And then it just became like I hate doing all of this stuff and I don't want to do it. Or I love video games. And in particular, I love like those cozy sims where you play like as a farmer. So I was like, oh, I'll stream these on Twitch. So then at least when I'm playing and relaxing, I'm like getting some benefit out of it. The minute I started to get followers and people would come in and like try to chat and like do things, I was like, I hate this now. I don't, you're interrupting my time, my thing. And so I was like, okay, I can't monetize video games because it makes it into something that doesn't feel personal anymore. And so I just think that you have to have a real clear-eyed understanding. If you're going to monetize something you love, are you willing to lose the love over the sake of this monetization?
Okay, I love the logic that you put behind all that, and especially TikTok. So, TikTok is something that I really got into in 2025, and just coming off the wave of, oh my gosh, they're gonna take away TikTok, and then they brought it back. I'm like, okay, I really need to dig into this and figure out if there is something for me on TikTok. So when you talk about the creator fund and all that, that's something that I can actually relate to because I have tried going live, I've tried making product videos, and I've
Hmm.
had like a tiny bit of success. And I mean, going live can be very tricky. There's some people who just instantly have a ton of success and are having gifts thrown at them like they're, I don't know, Elvis
Yeah.
50 years ago. Um, and it can be that kind of experience. But I know for me, a lot of my passion for TikTok, even though I'm trying to like hang in there, I'm currently trying to switch agencies and I've had like a real interest. I find it very fascinating and I see the possibilities with it. But
Yeah.
to your point, as soon as certain people or things were getting into that space and kind of like uh ruining it, and I could, sit here and find all kinds of ways to define that and tell stories, but there have certainly been things that have kind of like ruined it. And then
Yeah.
it's like it stops being like that kind of a passion. And it's like, I don't know if I really want to do this. Then you're like half assing it. And it just becomes no fun. So,
Yeah.
in that regard, I can really relate to how you're seeing that.
Yeah, I have tried a few times with TikTok, and it's hard because I know what my level of try looks like. So I can tell you like I have not tried at all with TikTok. I've posted a few videos here and there. I've done some clips, but I know what my level of try looks like. I know when I'm obsessed with something and when I'm like locked in on it, and I have not ever truly been locked in on building this thing, right? So like Form Dash, the other business that I have never was supposed to be a business. Absolutely had no intention of doing this as a business. But I, in my very limited free time, coach a high school dance team here in Iowa. And we have to do a lot of fundraising. It is very expensive for this particular program. Our uniforms alone are like $400 a person just for a single uniform. So over the course of a year, we're probably fundraising like $15,000 to $20,000 for 18 kids to be a part of this program. And that's probably honestly a low ball number. And I have this distinct memory of standing in my house. We had a fundraiser event on a Friday night. The bank was not open until Monday to go do the deposit. And I had probably 15 grand in cash in my house in a banker's envelope. And of course, my head immediately starts going through all of the worst case scenarios. Like, okay, what if someone accuses me of like mishandling the money? Okay, that's how I'm going to get fired and end up on the news. And okay, or what if my house burns down and all of this cash is gone and I can't do anything with it? And so I created Form Dash using the skills that I had to learn as part of being part of a startup. So, how to build a website, how to set up payment structures, how to set up the ability for people to fill out information and go through these form fills. And I basically, in 2017, before it was cool, was taking paper forms like sales forms and sales trackers and camp registrations and all of those things and doing them as a digital version that would allow people to fill out their own information, add their own pricing, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So because my husband is a CPA, he's like, well, if we do this, you can't have this money running through your personal account. So let's just set you up a quick LLC. We'll get you a bank account. That way, all the money has a paper trail. So it would go from the customer into my bank, into the company's bank account, and then out to the high school when the fundraiser was over. And all of a sudden, my coaching friends started saying, "Hey, what's this Farm Dash thing that you're using? Can I use it too?" I'm like, "Oh, it's not real. It's not a real thing. It's something that I'm doing for myself." But I kept getting pressure and I kept getting pressure. And now it's a thriving business that I just do as a little side hustle. You know, it's never a main focus, 1 to 2 hours a week, but it pays for my vacations and it pays for my holidays. And it helps coaches just like me who were experiencing a real challenge solve a problem, protect themselves from being accused of mishandling money, and also make their lives easier. Nobody wants to read a piece of paper and then try to figure out who ordered what and what that shirt size was and deal with cash and checks. Nobody wants that. And so when you think about how you build your business, sometimes simply solving your own problems with no intent to turn it into a business means that you are going to build something that people actually want and crave. I have people banging down my door to use Form Dash. I've never marketed or sold a day in my life for it. So looking around and saying, is there anything in my life that's causing me a problem? Is there a way that I can think of that solves it that's different than how someone else is doing it? And would I be willing to pay money to solve this problem? And that third piece is the part that people usually ignore.
That is excellent advice. And that is actually one of the problems I hope to resolve with this show in bringing people like you on to say such smart things like that. Because ultimately, entrepreneurs are largely trying to resolve an issue that either they have or maybe somebody else has. And I know there are a few things that, and few reasons for why I do this show. I know that I want to not only educate people out there, because I guess for me, there was a time where the opposite of you, I was working in corporate America and didn't really like I kind of felt stuck and
Yep.
felt like I wasn't really fulfilled in my work. And that kind of led me to kick around like how can I find that fulfillment? And I think by doing this show and
Yeah.
bringing people on like you, it's kind of geared partly to help people out there like me, hopefully, to see within themselves the possibility and to hopefully fix that problem of like maybe not feeling fulfilled or maybe getting an idea like the ideas that you're presenting here that they might not have thought of before. So I don't really know where I'm going with that, but just you listening to you talk about how you accidentally kind of fell into that side hustle uh, just makes me think of that and just the whole reasoning. Because sometimes you can just keep going with a business and you're like, why did I decide to do this in the first place? And
Yeah.
it's good for me to just sit here and say it out loud and remind myself of why I'm doing this. And I also want to say that uh, there's quite a few people. You don't always have to go into a business, much like this one in particular, with, an absolute like framework and idea. Sometimes it can just happen completely by accident. And that's pretty awesome. I'm a little jealous.
That is definitely one of the more unusual entrepreneurial stories, right? Because a lot of times people set out to build something, right? Like, and there's no shame in that, right? And I think, like you, and the reason that you do this show is to help people in open conversations and drive forward dialogue. That's why it's become really important for me to push people into starting businesses. And I want to be very clear that for me, pushing means so much more than just giving them a thumbs up or saying they should do it. I will go out of my way to do whatever I can do to help them get their business going, get their business running, because entrepreneurship can be very lonely. A lot of people who have never sat in these seats do not necessarily understand what it's like to run the numbers every month and wonder or not if you can make payroll, or to go to conference after conference or call after call and have people tell you no. So, like not all of my ventures have been successful. You mentioned Lift 360 at the top. I closed that business in December. It never made a dime. I worked on it for like 18 months, 2 years. Like I spent a ton of money on it. I had all these people involved, all these people who were like believing in me. I had to shut that business down. I had to go to the people that, had given cash to it and I'd say, this has failed. The market does not want this. We missed the moment. I should have known better. I should have done this. I should have done that. But the business has failed. And, I have that string of successes, but that string of failure is just as important to the overall story because it's going to color and change the way I can help other people going forward and do whatever it takes. So that might be business coaching. That might be literally building a website with you and getting on WordPress and laying out the blocks and the content. That might be making as many introductions as I can. I have something that I do on my own show. I call it my fairy godmother list. And it is a spreadsheet of every person that ever comes on my show. I ask them after the show is over. It's not part of the episode, it's not part of the podcast. What does it mean for you to be successful? Like, zoom out to a year from now. What has to happen for you to consider your year a wild success? And then I take notes on whatever they tell me. And if I can make anything happen for them, if I can make an introduction, help them book a speaking gig. I just helped someone who was writing a book. I joined their book launch team. So I left them a review on Amazon and I posted about how excited I was for their book. All of those things, even the simple act of caring about what somebody else needs in order to be successful, can make the difference between someone finding a winning path and someone ultimately failing. And so I believe that anyone who is successful or has found any level of success owes that to give back to the community, to pave the next wave of entrepreneurs who are going to drive innovation and this thing that we as Americans want to be known for, which is building great things, driving innovation, and changing the world. And I want to be part of that. And I want to be part of someone else's story in a positive way.
And I love that you painted such a realistic picture of entrepreneurship because sometimes you can look at somebody and just say they've got it all. They're
Yep.
amazing, they're a baller, etc., etc. But there is a lot of obstacles. It's a roller coaster ride. It can be very lonely.
Yeah.
And while it's sad to say that, I'm glad you said that because I say that a lot and it's very, very true, especially if you're a solopreneur, which I know I am. I don't know if you have anybody beyond your husband lending a hand, but I am a solopreneur. I have had moments where I had to really dig deep to
Yeah.
kind of get myself back on track and keep on going because there were a few times, especially early on, where I said, I don't know if I can keep doing this. This didn't turn out at all the way I wanted it to. This is terrible. My whatever is ruined and whatever, and it's not
Yeah.
gonna go perfect. And you have to be able to uh, you have the courage to overcome that. And
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you're saying all this because it's super important.
I used to host an event pre-COVID times, and I really should bring it back, maybe a virtual version, but we called it the Failure Fireside Chat. And what we would do, it was an intimate, unrecorded event, and we'd get out the whiskey and sit around a fireplace, and we would bring in the most successful person we could find. The guy who has quote unquote made it, right? The one that when you're at a networking event or a conference, everybody's trying to shake his hand and have a conversation and pitch him on something. And we would bring this person in and have them do a 30-minute fireside chat about everything that went wrong. You are not allowed to talk about the wins, the accomplishments. We only want to hear about the times that you almost didn't make it, that the check barely came in time, and what that meant to you, because we have to peel back this social media veneer of constant success and fake it until you make it and all of these things because it's creating an unrealistic expectation for people when your first year it doesn't work out. Like I said, $1,200 my first year, then 10,000, then 23,000. It took me 4 years to find any level of what someone else would call successful. But a lot of people will start businesses and their partner gives them 3 months, 6 months, or they're embarrassed to admit they aren't cajillionaires after a year because we look on social media and we see these influencers who are renting a plane for the afternoon. They don't even own it and never even goes into the sky, but for a photo shoot and a video shoot because they want to sell you this narrative of how successful they are, when in reality, a lot of people are faking it. And I think it's okay to admit that and be honest. And I think it's the right thing to do if you want to build a community that actually builds things.
I totally agree. And it's very important to stay true to yourself and to realize that not everybody who is an entrepreneur is flying in a private jet and doing all these things that I would call like, you're a baller. And I certainly know I am not a baller. I was excited just with the little bit of nominal success that I had last year. I had my first public speaking engagement last year, thanks to the platform that we're connected on, which is Podmatch. I spoke at a virtual engagement, and it took me a few years just to get that far. And
Yeah.
it can take a lot of time, and you really have to dig within yourself and you to your point you gotta be sure that what you're doing is something that you're passionate about, you're obsessed with, and it's something that you want to grow and evolve with, and you have the courage to uh, take the losses. And
Yeah.
when you get the wins, certainly celebrate them and enjoy it, but definitely have the courage to be your own critique and to pivot and make the adjustments that you need to make in order to continue evolving. That's really what it's about. And to your point, it can be very lonely.
Yeah. And unsatisfying too, right? Like a lot of people hear that, oh, you're your own boss. That's so great. Nobody tells you what to do. I'm like, everybody tells me what to do. My clients tell me what to do. My accountant tells me what to do. My lawyer tells me what to do. I am just a veneer of a person who's in charge. But really, you have to be the one who does everything. At the end of the day, it all comes down to you. So yeah, I do have a team of people that I work with, but I'm the one who is ultimately responsible to do what it takes and to make it happen, not them. And so you have to be clear-eyed when you're going into these types of things, right? Not to scare anyone off. But there's a book that I always recommend to entrepreneurs when they're first considering it. It's called The Dip by Seth Godin. It is tiny. It's like 50 pages long. And it is the idea that in order to be the best in the world, and you get to define whatever world means to you, like literal world or just, your neighborhood, whatever. To be the best in the world, you have to be incredible at quitting. And I was like, wait, what? What does that even mean? And it's the idea that Michael Phelps is one of the best swimmers in the world, not because he spends his time playing golf and playing basketball and going to the movies and doing all of these other things. He quit baseball so he could focus on swim. He dropped, this college course because it conflicted with his swim practice time. You have to decide what you are going to quit so that you can be the best in the world at the thing you want to be the best in the world at. And that is really hard, right? Because sometimes we want to spread and hedge our bets and we want to say, okay, I'll do a little of this and a little of that, and it'll all culminate into something. But you will never be the best in the world if you're not ready to quit the things that are not giving you the path to that success.
And that's so true. It even applies to right now. I could be sitting on the couch playing,
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever on the PlayStation and getting better at that and trying to be, I don't even know what game, but just, I guess, use your imagination. But I could be doing something else, but instead of enjoying, uh, not that I'm not enjoying this, this is an amazing episode, but I could be doing something that's requiring a little less of me than this
Yeah.
is now. But instead, I am here showing up and trying to evolve as a host. And those are the kind of like sacrifices that you need to make. And you really learn a lot about how passionate you are about what you're doing and what you hope to achieve. And I really, I don't want to take up too much more of your time here, but I do want to kind of, this is a sloppy segue into podcasting because
Yeah.
I I feel like just based on this conversation that we have a little something in common as far as like Twitter versus or Twitter, um, TikTok versus podcasting because I feel like the people that I find the most relatable and down to earth and like I hate saying, "Oh, you're real," but you're a very like grounded person. I feel like they're the ones who always don't do that great at TikTok, and not. I don't want to like be the one to say you're not good at it. That's not
I'm
for
not good at
me.
it.
Well, I'm not either. I didn't really want to come out and be that harsh because I'm not that
Yeah.
good at it either. And I know some of my favorite people on TikTok are like us. And they're the ones that I get along with the best and relate to the best. And I can see podcasting being a lot more your platform. And I'd
Yeah.
love to know just when it kind of like dawned on you that you wanted to start not one but two podcasts and just the process that you went through to start them up.
So I'm going to try to condense this story into
Yes,
a few
yes.
minutes because it can get a little long. But we talked about the original business that I started with those two college professors and that we built. And we built that for, it was just over 7 years and really, really built that up. We picked up some incredible clients, names like, well, like Salesforce was one of our clients and Cisco and JP Morgan Chase and all of these incredible brands that, I was so proud that we were this little tiny company of three people in the middle of Iowa. I literally looked out the window of my office, saw a cornfield, right? That we were getting the attention and the respect of some of these huge companies who couldn't pinpoint our location on a map. And we got to the point where we caught the attention of another company. They were a little bit bigger than us, probably like two or three times, maybe even more. They might have even been 10 times bigger than us. I don't even know for sure. We caught their attention and they got really excited. And, when you start a business, they're going to ask you, what kind of business is this? Is this a business that you're going to do for life? This is your job. Is this a business that you're going to scale and sell? Like, what is your exit strategy for this business? And every entrepreneur's dream is to have someone say, I want to buy your business from you. And so we got that offer to sell the business and we took it. And part of that decision was going to require some of the key people to go work for the new company. And this new company did different things, but kind of parallel, but not really. And so we got into this environment. It was the first time I was not really the boss of the business, right? Because we got acquired and we merged in. And I discovered that I had no place there, right? Like I was doing well and people liked working with me, but I was genuinely unhappy in that environment and still trying hard, but it just wasn't meant for me. I'm certifiably unemployable, I've decided. And so when I left and was no longer going to work for that company, I was like, okay, I'm going to start again. And I realized that in the time that I originally started my original business, who was then acquired. And then that business now had my clients, right? My client list, because that was part of the acquisition. And I said, okay, how do I do this now? Because the world has fundamentally changed. It went from starting a business in 2013 to starting a business in 2024 is when I moved on. And I said, I don't know how to do business in a post-COVID world. I don't know how to build it from scratch. And I realized that so much of business is done in this exact environment where we're talking into a camera, speaking into a void, having a conversation with a stranger across the internet. And so I started podcasting as a way to force myself to learn this skill and practice. So I started Taking Back Monday, and it is a conversation with leaders throughout the world about what it means to take back our Mondays and to live a life without those Sunday scaries where we go to bed on Sunday night just dreading the next day, and a world in which Monday isn't the most likely day that you're going to have a heart attack. There's like a 30% increase in heart attacks on Mondays. And for me, what does that say about the world that we live in from a work perspective? And so I started Taking Back Monday to practice. And I brought people on to interview because I knew if I interview someone, they expect you to post your episode. And so I would have like almost the accountability of actually having to put myself out there and post what I was posting. Recorded 10 episodes before I posted anything, started posting, kind of embarrassing if I go back and listen to those because they were like mortifyingly bad. But I discovered a real love for these conversations and the inspiration of other people's stories and their ideas and their experiences that are so different from my own, that it really became not just something I was doing, but something that I could truly cherish and build real relationships with people that I cared about, with stories that I wanted to tell. And so I do Taking Back Monday. The shift has really turned more towards entrepreneurship and what your story is and what you're working on. And then I started the growth signal to talk to people about things that mattered to my business and my thought leadership and what I wanted to be known for. And so the growth signal is all about the future of customer relationships. How do we build them? How do we keep them? And how do we make sure that we continue to lead as those expectations rapidly evolve? So we talk to salespeople, marketing people, customer success, basically anyone who has to have a relationship with their customer in order to drive their business forward.
I love it. I love what you're getting out of it, which is exactly why I love. I mean, I always say I love podcasting for this reason or that reason. There's like a billion reasons, but
Yeah.
definitely the relationships and the rapport that I've developed with so many people is definitely one of the key drivers as to why I love doing it, because there is podcast day mark where the energy might be like a little bit low. And
Yeah.
then there's me during and after, which the energy that I have is just totally different. And I think it's a combination of I'm doing something that is for me, and
Yeah.
I'm also making like a real meaningful connection with amazing people that I keep having the pleasure of meeting and having these great conversations with. And unfortunately, we don't have like 4 more hours to go into podcasting, and I feel like I didn't even scrape the surface of what you actually do, because that's certainly very important. I know you touched on it a little bit, but you said so many incredible things about just entrepreneurship in life that uh, how could I not have kept going in that direction? Um, but we are kind of running out of time, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell everybody how they can find you, how they can work with you, and anything else that you might want to add.
So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can search Alyssa Nolte. If you find Alyssa Nolte, the notorious plant killer, you know you have found the right Alyssa Nolte. So feel free to shoot me a connection, follow me, engage. I would love to have a conversation with you about what you're working on, what you believe in, like how I can help you, go to the next stage of your business or whatever you're working on. I also have a Substack. You can search Alyssa Likes to Talk is the name of my newsletter. And then you can also find me at it's alyssanolte.substack.com. I would love to connect with you. Please come have a conversation. I'm good for random trivia, no help on keeping plants alive or pictures of dogs. Those are really, really what you need to come see me about.
You know, the plant, keeping plants alive, that was going to be a part of my introduction for you today, and it totally slipped my mind. So I'm
That's
glad
okay.
you
I
mentioned.
own it.
Well, Alyssa, thank you so much for being on Mark My Words and imparting such amazing wisdom. This was a really great conversation, and I know at the heart of this show, career transitions and building yourself up as an entrepreneur and just learning about entrepreneurship is very important to me. And I know not every episode of this show, I kind of, as I've met more people and I'm like, oh, I gotta have this topic and that topic on, and it can get a little diverted from that. But I love when I can have people like you on to give such real, honest testimonials and advice on what it's like to be an entrepreneur. So thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate your time.
Mark, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for creating a space and a platform for this conversation, and I hope that everyone got as much out of it as I did.
And make that too, because I got a ton out of this, and thank you very much. And I guess that is it for this episode of Mark My Words. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks again to Alyssa for being here. I'm your host, Mark Schmidt. You just listen to Mark My Words, and I will see you soon. Goodbye for now. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.